Okay, so up first then, we've got Beverley Winrow and Foxlee. So they're going to talk about what's the teching point, I like it, what's the teching point, a customer lens on facilities transformation. And they're going to talk about Mitie and how they work with Sky Spaces. Welcome up.
So, as we've just said, I'm Beverley Winrow. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Technical Services and IFM within Mitie, and I'm joined on stage by Foxlee, who is the Director of Sky Spaces. The presentations earlier have opened up some really key focal points, and it's really good to see that many of the minds in this room and hopefully online are very aligned with how tech and people work together. Facilities management is an industry that we've all been in for many years potentially. I certainly have. 20 years of experience within FM. Over the last 12 to 24 months, I've absolutely seen the move from facilities management to facilities transformation. And how are we doing that? Well, we're doing it through using an innovative technology that supports and drives our customers' estates and businesses, allowing them to focus on what their priorities are and to be working to the best of their strengths with their people in the sectors and categories that they work in. And how are we doing that? How are we creating that transformation? Well, it's all done and underpinned by real-time, accurate and tailored data that enables business decisions that are informed and justified. So, what is the point in tech, or as I called it, the teching point? Recognising that many of the elements up here on the screen, we're probably all experimenting with in some way, whether that be augmented reality, digital twins, chat GPT, gamification, and even datification. How many fications can you have in one sentence? Anyway, we're absolutely inundated with solutions. And as FM experts, how do we get that right balance between tech and people? And I hope if Martin's listening online, that will answer the question from earlier as we go through the presentation. There's certainly a shift in the requirement as FM experts of what our clients require. And as a professional working in a company that has over 1 billion square feet of data, which equates to, if you're old enough, 20 million filing cabinets that we used to see in offices, we have to use that data moving forward from the technologies that we deploy to enable us to have the decarbonisation strategies we spoke about earlier, the optimising and an improvement of the asset performance, the commute-worthy buildings that we all are striving for our workforces, but ultimately to improve the human experience for our colleagues and clients. And how do we do that? And how do we do that ensuring that you play the right part? So, people. People are the absolute pivotal part of how we deploy tech. I am a HR expert by background, so I understand absolutely the key part that people play in the use of that deployment of tech. And what people want to see, either for their teams or their clients, is tech that enables people to have a more dynamic, efficient and sustainable environment or service that prioritises resilience and adaptability. They want environments, people want environments that create exceptional experiences and spaces that support the well-being and the inclusivity of all. We can't have one without the other. We can't say that tech is not here. We can't say that people's opinions don't matter. People's opinions absolutely do matter, supported by data that drives insight. So what is the point? As industry leaders, what do we want to gain from technology and the ability it has to affect a workplace? I'll take each in turn. Human experience. The technology needs to enhance the experience, whether that's from cleanliness to real-time tracking of occupancy, or the reduction of health and safety issues, such as spill detection technology, which, as we've learned earlier from an earlier presentation, the amount of claims that we're facing in an environment that FM supports is on the rise constantly. And these technologies are there to support that experience. We need an experience that has a human connection. It can't be one without the other. Employee workplace apps and Power BI dashboards are a given now. That is absolutely, in most environments, a human hygiene factor. People expect to see an app to log a job. They expect to see Power BI dashboards that give them the insight of what their data is telling them. All the technology absolutely is there to improve that experience. We need to look at optimising assets and maximising productivity. So what does that mean? It means reducing downtime. That's what it means, whether you're a client, an end user, or a user of a building. It means smart buildings, but buildings that have automation. And it's that automation and those buildings that allows you, as a user or an owner of that asset, to ask that all-important question. How does my estate compare to best in class? How do I drive that estate and that asset to its optimum output to enable other things and other factors that are exceptionally important to humans now? It also gives you the data and that insight to be able to move that building into that best of class regime. The next one is about transforming workplaces and customer experience. We've heard many times today, and it's great to hear from David, who I used to work with, about creating those exceptional experiences. We have to have venues for colleagues and clients to work at that they want to go to. It is a given now. It's not a nice to have. We can all see from our workforces and the people that we're trying to recruit into our workforces that the requirement to have a building that attracts them, that is fun, that gives them that human touch and allows them to collaborate is absolute necessity and isn't seen as a nice to have anymore. The next element is around protecting people, property and assets. We haven't spoken loads about that today, but ultimately tech and intelligence has to be part of how we empower our teams to keep security at its most resilient and one step ahead. We need better risk assurance, and the technology that is now available within FM service provision in these areas is absolutely key to providing that transformation. Keep pressing next when I'm turning my page in the paper, and that's not good, is it? The next one is around accelerating that path to net zero. We heard earlier about how the climate change is changing, is here now. But absolutely, with the many clients that I still work with, they're not in that mindset yet. Yes, it's a topic on the C-suite agenda, but we have to use technology more to allow energy insight and modelling to optimise the estate, to allow our FM professionals to absolutely support our clients in making those environments fit for the future. And again, decarbonisation, net zero, climate change, ESG agendas are all, from a people perspective, an absolute. Most people now will ask you in an interview what your commitment is around net zero or decarbonisation. That's just as important to the next generation of workforce, if not more, than sometimes salary and package. So, how do we drive that transformation and ultimately ensure that people play that ultimate part? We've heard many times today about technology being introduced to reduce repetitive tasks. What I haven't heard many times today is about when you remove those repetitive tasks, for example, PPMs that can be done digitally, whether that's through BMS or sensors, how we allow those work groups to then focus more on strategic or tactical jobs, upskilling that workforce and making them see that that reduction in repetitive work through technology is a benefit to them. Digital maintenance is a way that you can absolutely explain that to your workforce within a FM. And there's many other topics we've heard about, whether it's call centres, whether we reduce the amount of teams that are answering the calls and it's replaced by AI. Again, it's about the way it's communicated and that the workforce doesn't see the introduction of technology as a threat, and that it is there to support them just as much as it supports them in their daily lives. We've heard today about how it's so symbiotically used within every part of our life outside of work. You come into the work environment and it's seen as a threat. The narrative around technology and supporting that experience absolutely needs to change. It's about driving efficiency and productivity and creating the lower costs to serve. But in doing so, you have to have the same conversation on the balance of cost versus quality. One can't be driven without the other, and if you do, it is just a race to the bottom then. It does reinforce the narrative that tech absolutely is there to take away jobs. This is about how we can use any money that is saved from removal of driving efficiency and productivity and invest that back into the quality of the services, the quality of the experience, or the quality of the environment for the individuals. It's about improving user experience and ensuring that those touch points along the customer roadmap are seamless. And we've mentioned that many times today about the customer journey, the customer personas, the different end users, and how those roadmaps need to be clearly defined and how touch points of technology and people along that roadmap absolutely have to be aligned. And we've also discussed about transformation of carbon reduction, whether that's the simple element of using tech to reduce lighting or tech-enabled CPCs, EPCs, whatever it is we're moving towards, we have to ensure that the tech and the data enables to do that in a transformational way. And finally, retaining and attracting talent. When tech is used to enhance job roles and the environment, it is absolutely an upsell. It's about attracting and retaining the best talent possible. And also ensuring that when we are looking at changing roles as we move forwards, such as engineering, we sell that as a pathway. So if we have a multi-skilled engineer and we remove some of the repetitive PPM tasks through digital maintenance, surely we should be talking about Metatronic engineering and how we move that engineering team into that new direction that supports the technology. So, I'm just going to show a short video about how we are in Mitie using tech to support, on this occasion, a workplace design, but how it shows tech and people working together to drive the best outcomes. I'll now hand over to Diana, who'll give you an insight into Sky Spaces.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Diana Foxlee, and I head up what we call Sky Spaces. So I guess in old money, that's the property department. But actually, when I came into role back end of 2019, which is obviously a great time to start a new career with nothing changing in the world, etc., we'd already planned to do a bit of a rebrand, and actually held off for a bit because it felt very strange rebranding the team at a time when nobody was actually coming in to see what we did. But actually, as time went on, we'd already come up with this idea of Sky Spaces, and it became even more kind of important because actually we went from being the property service group, so servicing our properties, to being, well, we're looking after the spaces, and it is a specifically broad term because that's what we want it to be, because it is about what is a space for you, where are you doing your work. So our vision, our mission is all about sustainable spaces that our colleagues love. And we wanted it to be short and snappy, and each word in that is very, very purposeful. So I will just pick out a couple quickly, because sustainable for us is very much, and I'll talk about it a bit later, the planet is something that we are super motivated and have been for sort of 5-10 years, I would say, in the property space. But actually here we're talking broader in terms of sustainable. We're talking about things being lasting, doing things that have longevity. We're doing it in the right way, whether that's for our people or our processes. When we talk about colleagues, this is about both our team, and as I say, when working really closely with Mitie, when we say our team, we don't differentiate who's paying the wages. We talk about the team that come together to create, curate, manage these brilliant spaces. And then love, we really kind of, we had a bit of, marmite of this word, but we played around with it. And actually we were like, no, it's okay to have love at work. Can I say that? I've just said it. Because actually it's got that sense of pride. It's got that sense of it's more than just functional. It's actually something that gives you that little kind of, sort of hairs up on your arm, and what we're doing is stuff that we care about, and therefore people are going to interact with it in that way as well. And so building that down in terms of like, what are we about, what are we here to do, it is about environments and experiences, and it's both of those things. And the three words that we go back to time and time and again is work, connect and thrive. And work is a bit of play on words because it's two things. It's where you come to carry out your role of work, which is great. And it also means work function. So as a basic, it needs to function. And there's something about sort of simplicity, seamless in there. The next bit is around connect, and that is very much, I love this word because it really is about the people and the technology, and it is bringing those things together, and it's how we as a team can make that easy for people and actually kind of navigate, wayfind, whether it's with technology or whether it's with a connection to the environment or the landscapes or our brand. It's all of those things in one. And then the final one is around thrive, and this plays again to the love. It's more than just it's okay, I get it done, it's fine to be here. It's actually somewhere that makes you feel good and where you can be at your best. So that's that can be anything to do with air quality, the light, the acoustics, the food, all of that great stuff. There's so much more knowledge now about how important those things are to people's well-being and ultimately productivity as well. So it's super motivating on both of those counts.
Brilliant. So when I asked Diana to join me up here, I said, would you answer a few questions with me on stage? So there's 3 questions that we asked Diana if she would answer from a customer's perspective around people and tech. So if we move on to the first question, as a workplace professional, what is your biggest challenge in 2024?
So I'm going to start with, and I just put a few words on here to remind myself of the points, but not a very exciting word, but expectations. So this is the first thing that I'm grappling with. So I feel that in a post kind of pandemic world, the expectations of colleagues and what they're expecting to get out of the workplace has shifted. And actually, have we taken the time to properly realign and share? And so one of my challenges and how I'm going to go about it this year is actually through connecting with senior stakeholders. What I found is that if you can align and find out their expectations, align with what you're able to provide, you can then join it up the narrative, because it's actually the leaders that we need to be able to sort of stand in front of their teams and say, actually, this is why we've made these decisions. This is why it's like this. This is how you can use our spaces. It's not enough for us to just be delivering. We actually need the leaders to be on board with it as well. And that only happens if we align our expectations. The second one was around metrics, and that's why I asked my question earlier. I guess for me, partly because we've gone through a change in ownership over the last few years, so there's definitely a shift in focus of not using just kind of a wing and a prayer and a gut to make decisions. We need to back it up. But what are the right things that we're measuring? We know that investing in our workspaces is the right thing to do. We know it attracts the right people. We know it retains the right people. We know that productivity is better. But we kind of just say that stuff and don't really have any way of properly measuring it. I'd really love to sort of crack that this year. And then the other one is around net zero. You'll never see me doing a property presentation without talking about sustainability. I think I feel like what's great is we've got real buy-in from the top of our company, so it's not hard to bring this up. We have non-negotiables. I wouldn't even put a project forward that wasn't fulfilling all the things that we need it to. I wouldn't allow it to be value engineered out. Where it is difficult is your ageing estate, and it's working out where it is worth investing. And obviously definitions are changing, and I hate that whole doing something just because it ticks a box. I just want to genuinely do what's the right thing. So that's something I feel is a bit of a challenge at the moment.
Brilliant. And how, just mentioning the sustainability, how do you intertwine sustainability into the strands of workplace and tech?
Yeah, so I suppose, building on what I was just saying, that I feel like fundamentally we don't always understand what we mean by sustainability, and I don't think it's just me, I don't think it's just Sky, I don't think it's just property. The fact that the way that things are being measured, data's being collected is sort of changing and evolving over time. We're only sort of just learning what are the real things that we should be focusing on. So I think that the technology can really help there, because if we've got a better understanding of our operation and what it's doing end to end, not just looking at sort of one portion at a time, we can kind of go, okay, so when we're making decisions, it's not just to affect this thing, it's like what is the best thing for the whole kind of process. The second piece is around data, and I've got this real like love-hate relationship with data, because I kind of fundamentally love it, and so property, I'm an accountant actually by trade. I've kind of fallen into property, so I do love like some numbers and some spreadsheets. It's my happy place. But I do find there's a bit of an obsession with just collecting as much data as you possibly can. And actually, the stats around the data centres and the power, obviously we were talking about this earlier in the session, like you can't ignore the fact that the AI and technology is driving actually a carbon footprint in itself. So there is a responsibility on individuals to work out what is the data they actually need, and to be storing it and stuff, because they're actually going to use it. Don't just collect it and go, look at us with all our data. Like, get it because you're going to do something about it. And then the third one is around storytelling. So I think that through getting together the data, getting together this sort of the insights, then people's opinions, expectations, us understanding it better, we can then build these stories, because that's what people care about. People don't care about a stat if there's no context behind it and the so what and what it means. And so being able to bring that to life, whether it is just contextualising it, whether it's getting it in the right platform. Obviously at Sky we're uniquely able through what we do as a business to be able to use our voice in that space, and I think that is super important. Yeah.
And do your workplaces meet the employees' cognitive needs? It's the last question, we're nearly there.
So I think this one's super interesting, because I picked this because I was like, I like to challenge myself. It wouldn't have been the easiest one to answer, but when you look at sort of Maslow's, needs, the sort of, when he went back and sort of revisited it and added in the extra kind of cognitive ones, etc. There's extra things that people are looking for, and so the things I kind of picked out around there, predictability, that is something that is really comforting for people. So again, I think that having technology that makes things repeatable, the same each time, so you know what you're getting, and actually it's not a feature of your day because it's kind of not memorable, but in a really good way, because you're using your brain space for something else. There's something around curiosity, like again, it sort of plays to this thriving. It's actually, what else could there be? How could things change? So I think an environment which is feeding into somewhere where you can be creative and explore in what we're doing, and using tech to understand how people are using the spaces, where they're using them, etc., really builds into that. And then just a knowledge, as I say, I think it sort of feeds back into the expectations, but we do a load of things and we don't necessarily tell people why we've done them or how to use our spaces optimally. If we're actually sharing that knowledge with people, then actually we are fulfilling a need, because then they're like, okay, I'm armed with as much information as you've got, I understand the journey, I can thrive in my workspace.
Brilliant. Well, hope, because we're over time, that's given you some insight into what we are doing in Mitie around how we're bringing tech and people together, but ultimately you're hearing from a customer what their needs are from a tech and people perspective. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.